Joining us now is Dr. Errol Southers, former FBI special agent and currently the director of Safe Communities Institute at the University of Southern California. Dr. Southers is also an internationally recognized expert on counterterrorism and public safety. Doctor, thank you for being here. Let me get right to it today. Did we witness an attempted coup d'etat of the United States government?
I think that might be a bit of a stretch if you want to go by the textbook definition, because that would mean that it was successful. It would mean that they've taken over the government as well as the military, which didn't happen. So I would at least suggest that we might have a violation of what would qualify as seditious conspiracy under the United States Code 2384, because they did stop the government from functioning. They did take over government property without authority. So there you might have a code that would be applicable as it relates to what happened today.
13 people have been arrested so far, yet there is literally dozens and dozens of pictures of these individuals inside the House chambers, inside the Senate chambers. Are they going to be rounding these people up? Will the FBI take a look at the pictures online and start rounding these people up?
Well, you've actually described the process that's going to take place. They will use facial recognition software. Arguably, you're talking about one of the top 3 most protected institutions in our country, with the other 2 possibly being the White House and the Pentagon. Every square foot of that landscape is covered by closed-circuit TV. Let's hope that they go back, do the investigation. They'll be taking those images and prosecuting people as time goes on.
All right, let's talk about that a little bit, because today was terrifying on a lot of different levels. One, what appeared to be an attempted takeover of our government, or as you described, the very least, the stopping of our functioning government. Also the fact that, let's be honest, a couple of hundred dudes with flags can take over the Capitol building. If I'm Russia, am I sitting there looking at this going, well, that doesn't look too hard? Imagine what a couple hundred troops would do. I mean, how terrifying. We spend trillions of dollars a year on defense, but you could walk into the Capitol and shut it down?
You are talking to all of my points. You are absolutely correct. This is a lesson learned for people. Again, arguably, in the top 3 most protected facilities in America, a mob walked in and took over. I'm finding out now that there were 2 IEDs that have been rendered safe by the FBI in the last hour. You've got people that have walked in. We don't know who had weapons. We don't know who had explosives. We don't know what's going to be left. There's going to be a lot of work to do to clear this building. There's going to be a lot of work to do to get these people out. And I'm understanding now that the Sergeant at Arms has said the Capitol building is secure, but rendered safe is going to be a different conversation as they go through and determine what's still there, what's suspicious, and what's been damaged.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too far into this, but the Capitol building is a huge complex. It's got underground tunnels that have been there for a couple of hundred years. I mean, there is literally thousands of places where you could personally hide, where you could certainly leave explosive devices if that's what your goal was. I mean, tell me about how long it's going to take to truly make that building secure, as you just described.
Well, as someone who has quite a bit of experience having cleared terminals at airports when we've had suspicious devices, it's going to take a lot of time with canines. You're going to have to be looking at every nook and cranny. As you mentioned, there are many areas of the Capitol that are not available to the public that these people probably accessed. It's going to take a lot of work, and they're going to have to render it safe. So God only knows how long it'll take. In order to say that they can return to that location, it doesn't mean that because they can't return there, that they won't continue the work that started this morning as it relates to the Electoral College process. That can take place elsewhere. The process has started. It will continue. It need not be finished today, but it will be finished before January 20th, and we will move on.
Let's talk a little bit about the single most predictable outcome for today. You and I spoke a couple of weeks ago about this being a possibility, that today was going to be like, why did the Capitol Police seem so utterly prepared for this when everybody on planet Earth with a brain knew this was going to happen?
Well, I have to say, with all due respect to my former colleagues in law enforcement, I am disappointed with regards to the response and the preparation for today. Weeks of information suggested that this was going to happen. People traveled from all over the country. The president every single day encouraged people to be there. I couldn't expect a different outcome. I am very disappointed and saddened that we now have one fatality as a result of today, but this was not a surprise. So to your point earlier about what they did not do, that's unfathomable to me. I mean, they had the National Guard on standby, but the fact that these people breached the Capitol is unconscionable. And you bring out a very good point. People around the world and people here in America are watching today to say, wow, that didn't look so hard. And so we have some issues.
Right. The president this morning stood about a mile from the Capitol building at a rally with his supporters and encouraged them to march on the Capitol. At any point, have we gotten to where serious consideration of invoking the 25th Amendment and removing him from power now before something else like this happens? Is that in consideration at all from the people you talk to?
I'm smiling because you're the second person who texted me that in the last 15 minutes. It would have to be the vice president. I don't think that this vice president is going to do that. 25th Amendment for quite some time. It is applicable. If you were probably to look up a definition of the 25th Amendment, everything that has occurred, the characteristics and elements are there. I don't think it's going to happen with the time left in terms of his office, but we are certainly at a time in our history where it is appropriate in terms of the safety and security of this nation and the continuity of government.
And then finally, sir, I don't want to make this something that it isn't. But you can't help but notice that when BLM said they were going to march in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and just march, that the Lincoln Memorial was lined with National Guardsmen in full riot gear. They arrested dozens and dozens of people who went past barriers. How is that different than what we saw today, where basically Capitol Police either stood down completely or escorted the rioters right into the Capitol building? How can you explain that contrast?
Well, you're absolutely correct. Well, first of all, the description you gave of the Black Lives Matter preparation is accurate. I'm looking at images today that people decided to post on social media to talk about the difference. We had enough information. I'm hearing that, unfortunately, there may have been selfies taken of people who were participating today with some of those officers again. I'm getting flashbacks of Kenosha when we had the shooting and that young man walked right by the officers after killing someone. But let's just remember why we're here. Those people were there today at the encouragement and incitement of the President of the United States. And so what you saw were people that were there, they were emboldened, and law enforcement stood, and it happened, and it got out of control.
Finally, Doctor, what happens now? We got 2 weeks till the next president's inaugurated. What happens?
What happens now is we return to at least a sense of safety and security in the facility, the safety and security of our Congress and the Senate. We return to the governance process, which is the Electoral College being confirmed. We move on to the inauguration. What's really disturbing are the heads of the agencies that are in place today have been noticeably absent. There's been no comment by the acting attorney general, no comment by the acting Department of Homeland Security secretary. They've been noticeably absent. It's a time for leadership. It's a time for America to do what it's always done in good times and bad, which is govern itself. But I have to say this, we should never again look sideways at a country that goes through something like this. We should never lecture anyone on democracy ever again after today.
Dr. Errol Southers, USC professor, former FBI agent, and one of our personal favorites. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.